welcome to the AM Sisters podcast. You're here today with your hosts, Anna and Maria Sereng, and today we're going to talk about identity and self-acceptance.
That is right. So today we're going to talk a little bit about our experiences dealing with this topic of identity and also how we have accepted ourselves the way we are and how we have overcome external judgments because, people are going to have different perspectives about us, although we not always agree with that or we perceive ourselves differently.
That's right.
So, to start our conversation, I'd like to talk a little bit about how the way people perceive us when we are children really impacts the way we perceive ourselves, right? I think especially because we are twins, we have experienced this a little bit differently from other people who have not had the experiencing of having a twin, right?
Everything comes back to childhood, doesn't it? All our traumas, our personalities, everything, the way we deal with things when we grow up, everything comes back to childhood, and our identities for sure do. And like you were saying, the way people interact with us shapes us. And as twins, I feel judgment as well, and comparison is a key element of growing up as a twin, and not a good point, actually.
But I think in this case, the judgment itself and comparison happens in all families when they have more than one child, right? But I think in the case of twins, what is different is that it's not only the comparison itself, but it's about considering the two of us as one child. Because our identities have become mingled. We became one person in many situations. Confusing our names, not knowing who they were talking to, considering that our personalities, our tastes, everything we did should be the same. And because we were molded and influenced to behave that way, we in many ways have become to behave and be very similar to each other.
Yeah, I think, but at the same time, it created this urge to be different as well. Because I remember when we were very young, like our mother used to dress us in the same way, same haircut, same clothes, same everything, buy everything double, the same exact toy, but for the two of us. And there was a point, I think we were, I don't know, maybe 7 years old or a bit younger. We were like, no, I'm deciding my own clothes. I'm doing my own thing. And from that point on, we basically didn't do similar things, even though we interact with people and we have somehow similar personalities. I feel that we chose different pathways in many ways, like choosing different musical instruments or choosing different languages to learn and all those little things. What do you think?
I agree, but I think this differentiation really happened when we were going to university. Because during high school, high school is not a good experience, I think, for many people, including ourselves. I didn't like high school at all.
It's a jungle.
Yes, it's like a jungle. But, when people start saying, oh, you're really good at this subject and you're really good at this other subject, but not so good in this one, you kind of accept that as a truth to yourself, which sometimes is not exactly right, because we are good at many things, right? So it's not like, oh, you're the twin who is good at science and math, like was my case, and you're the sister who is good at writing or, social sciences, whatever. Because we both can be good at those subjects. But I think because during our teenage years, we are always looking for this reassurance, and people saying you're good at this thing.
Yeah.
Kind of become, you kind of believe that as who you are. And I think that's why, although we wanted to study, I remember arts and cinema, which are kind of in the same way, same direction, arts and creativity and all that. We were influenced by our parents and our peers to do something else. So in my case, I studied science and technology. I studied engineering, and you studied international relations, so social sciences, and all that.
Yeah, but I think it was a bit different there because I actually enjoy international relations, and my parents didn't allow me to go study art or anything like that because they're like, you need to find a job that's gonna pay your bills. And I understand them because they come from this family of people who migrated and etc. So they want stability for us. And but at the same time, I kind of dribble them because I was like, okay, I'm not going to study art, but I'm going to study something interesting that I also like. So international relations. They had no idea what it was, but it sounded fancy. I don't know. So they're like, okay, go ahead, study that. But in your case, you're kind of like, okay, you want to cut my wings? Okay, I'll just do whatever you want. So it was a very
But I think,
sad thing.
even way before that, when I was, I don't know, in the 7th grade, I was asked what I wanted to do when I grew up, and I said I want to be a scientist, or I
Yeah,
want to
you did.
be, or I want to volunteer and do charity work.
Yeah, I remember.
So
So
I
global
think I've
health.
always, I've always been interested about science, but it was not my passion. That's the difference.
Oh, my answer was terrible.
What
You
was your
remember?
answer?
Okay, I had two answers. One was when I was very, very, very young. I said I wanted to sell ice cream because, well, who doesn't, right? If you're like 5 years old. But then when we were in school, and I remember you answered that you wanted to be a volunteer, I said I wanted to be president.
Yeah.
But I wanted to be president of the world. Well, okay, I ended up studying political science, so it was the closest I could get to that.
Yeah, that's true. And I think, yeah, we kind of got to study things that were quite similar to what we said during our childhood, but I think was not our passion anyway.
One thing I also wanted to mention about how childhood impacts who we are, it's not only in the sense of like you were saying compliments. So I feel that if you get compliments from your parents, for example, because you do good in school and have good grades, you're gonna associate that having good grades or having these achievements in, I don't know, in school, university, your workplace, that's the only thing that's gonna bring approval from others. And I don't know if you're even like gender differentiation, if you always said, oh, you're a good girl because you're quiet, you're a good girl because you listen to your parents or you listen to older people, or you're a good girl because you do that, or you're a good boy because you try different things because you're adventurous or whatever. I think this also shapes how kids grow up and what they get their sense of approval from the world. And so maybe those patterns that were reinforced when you were very young, they still play out in our adulthood.
Yeah, for sure. And also, we kind of associate love with the things people are praising us, right? So,
Yeah.
my parents will only love me if I do well in school, if I behave well, if this and that. And
Unconditional love.
love should be unconditional, right?
Yeah.
I think I even wrote about that in a post on our blog.
Yeah, you did. It's pretty
Love.
good. You should check it out.
But it's pretty hard to have unconditional love. Although we say parents have unconditional love, I think maybe they do have, but they don't know how to express it well in a way that is not misunderstood in the subconscious of the kid, right? So,
Yeah.
why don't we talk a little bit about how the perception of ourselves have changed while we were growing up, or when we moved countries?
Okay. Do you want to start?
You can go ahead.
Um. Okay. So I feel okay in Brazil. People see us as very Japanese. I feel, or
Asian.
Asian in general. They Eastern Asian. I don't know. They can recognize that we're not Westerner or Brazilian or whatever it means. So they already have this preconceived notions of what an Asian person is. So people always thought I was quiet and very not shy, but very focused on my things, and that I studied
Introverted?
hard, I worked hard, introverted, and that I had to do well in school and all those things. So I think those were external things already projected in me when I was living in Brazil. I think university, that changed a little bit, but not that much. But I'm not introverted. I mean, I'm an ambivert, I would say. I need my alone time, but I'm not shy. And that's what people mistake, I feel. Because I can go out and say and socialize and do my things and do speeches or whatever I need to do. And I'm comfortable with that. But people just assume I'm something I'm not. I think the same for you, right?
Yeah. And one thing that I wanted to point out is that when people say, oh, you did well in that test, you're so smart because you're Asian. I mean,
Oh, yeah.
it makes no sense. You're saying that I didn't have like any effort, didn't put any effort into that. Just because I'm Asian, that's the reason why I do well on my test. That's really bad. I didn't like to hear that at all. And every time people associated my ethnicity, with my achievements, it makes no sense. And although I agree, being, raised by an Asian parent can very much influence how you're gonna deal with stuff. You're gonna have, I mean, in our case, we had more discipline, I think, compared to other kids in our family because of this upbringing. But it's not because of that we did the things we did, right?
And I feel it wasn't really our mom that put this pressure on us, even though she's the Japanese part of the family. I feel it was more the environment we were introduced to, like the Japanese community back home, and the discipline of being in the dance group and in taiko and all those things. Though, and even like studying Japanese since we're pretty young, I think those things brought us discipline, and not exactly our household, because our parents they're okay. They don't really pressure us to anything, and they're always praising us. Okay, but if I get like a B grade and you get an A, I remember they would come like, "Hey, what happened?" But that was it. It wasn't really all the time like you have to do this, you have to be the best. They never really put the pressure on us to be the best. But
Yeah,
you
so
wanted to say?
I think like moving to Japan, I don't know. I think when I moved here, my energy shifted a little bit as well. I was excited because it was something new, and I was meeting new people from all over the world, and I was happy about it. But my personality itself didn't really change. I think only my mood changed. I was not bored like I was back in Brazil, doing the same thing every day and all that. So, but for me, it was a big surprise when my some Japanese people that I know, they told me that they thought I was like very extroverted and like full of energy and all that, which was exactly the opposite as I was perceived back home in Brazil. And even compared to some international friends, now, even though I'm in Japan, they don't think I am super extroverted. They think I am shy and all that, like they did in Brazil. I think it's only about cultural perception, because people in Japan, Japanese people, usually they are very reserved. So when they meet a foreigner, probably comparing themselves or their friends with the foreign friend probably will have this
Extrovert type.
Yeah. But I think it's almost like a label,
Yeah.
If you're a foreigner, you are extroverted. You are
And if you're from
crazy.
Latin America, especially.
Yes, especially, yeah.
And Latinos and Latinas. We're the crazy ones everywhere.
We have this image here, but so it's something that we have to deal as well with that, because only by saying I am Brazilian, people already have many labels in their heads of what you are, who you are, which most of the times are not true.
Mm-hmm. That's why sometimes I don't say where I'm from or anything. I just introduce my name and that's it. And if people want to know, I answer, of course, but it's not like in my introduction, hello, I'm from this country and that, because perceptions already come. And I think like physical appearance also counts a lot, how people notice you. Because when I first came to Korea, I had blonde hair and this like very light, almost white blonde hair.
Platinum blonde.
Platinum blonde. And I remember even my international friends, like the girls that I lived together in the dormitory, they were from all over the place. And one of my closest friends now, she was like, "Oh, I thought you didn't like me at that time," because she thought I looked kind of, how do I say this, kind of
snobbish,
because the way I looked, I was like, what the hell? No, I'm super kind to everyone. And they're like, yeah, you're the sweetest. I'm sorry, I had this wrong first impression of you. And people told me, like, even in Brazil, I already had this blonde hair in Brazil as well. And some people said, oh, you look so confident. Like, you walk alone in the campus. It looks like you don't need anyone and you're fine by yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it just looks like you're good and you don't need anyone else in your life. And I was like, oh, that's not the case. I'm just busy going up and down, doing things I need to do. It doesn't mean that I don't welcome people or friends into my life.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a wrong first impression. And here in Korea, I stood out too much with the blonde hair as well, because I already look foreign here. And with the crazy hair as well, people would stare even more. I think maybe that's why I wanted to go back to a darker look, because I can fit in better and people don't stare that much.
Yeah, I think in my case, people thought that I looked like kind of strict. My personality was kind of a square person, which is not completely true. I don't think so.
But you're serious because I don't know, you're always stressed because of school. So I think that's why you always had this kind of aura coming, like, don't talk to me right now. I have things to do. That energy, that you don't have right now.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it depends on what we're doing, which place we are.
But for me, it's kind of a weird experience here in Japan. Usually when people look at me, most people would say they think I'm Japanese, or at least somehow Japanese. Maybe not quite Japanese, like true Japanese.
There's a little bit.
Yes, I think true Japanese. So usually people come talk to me straight in Japanese, and I don't get it because my Japanese language skills are not really good. So I feel sometimes a little bit conflicted, like, well, part of my family was here from Japan and I'm here in Japan, so maybe I should behave more like them or be more like them. And this causes me lots of stress sometimes, trying to fit in and not standing out too much, because sometimes I feel people are staring at me or I'm just too self-conscious, And this is something I'm working on, and I think it's getting better with time, just not caring so much about what other people are thinking, and just be good with yourself and accept who you are in that stage of life, accept the way you look, Yeah, I'm from Brazil, but I kind of look Asian, but I'm not from Asia. So even here, I feel like I don't really know where I fit in. But I think we all are trying to find our place, even if you don't have this ethnicity identity issue like we have. Probably you have others in your mind, and we have to make peace with that part of ourselves and say, well, it's fine. I don't have to be accepted by others. I'm just the way I am.
And also it's okay to be different, because I completely get what you said. If I were living in Japan, I would feel the pressure as well. Because when I went to visit you, people, they thought I was Japanese as well. And the funny thing that happened as well was like when you came to Korea, I feel. Because when I'm walking alone by myself, people never think I'm Japanese and they never think I am, I don't know, they think I'm from the US or anywhere. and they go straight to speaking Korean with me or try to speak a broken English. And then when you were here, people try to speak Japanese with us, and I was like, what the hell? We're twins and I'm alone, I don't give the Japanese vibe, but when you were with me, they thought we were. So I was like, interesting, very interesting.
Yeah, social experiment.
Yeah, and but I feel like coming to Korea, for example, it was also this adaptation to my own identity again, all over again, because when, like we said, when we were in Brazil, people always saw us as Japanese. But then I came here, and Korea has this issue with Japan, historical problems, and they don't get along very well, honestly. So I don't like saying that I'm Japanese right from the bat, and I kind of had to cut down a little bit on that part of my own identity. But I was like, okay, but I'm not the typical Brazilian as well. And people don't think I'm Brazilian. So every time I say I'm Brazilian, they come with like, oh, so you do play soccer? Or do you know samba? Or, oh, your skin is very light. Are you really Brazilian? And I was like, yeah, I am. So all those misconceptions about countries, and I had to come with terms with that and just accept that I am who I am. It doesn't really matter what people think of it. But I feel as well that the way we perceived our identity and how you want to stand out and be unique and how you want to fit in is very different in our countries, like Western countries, and here. Because in Western societies, everyone wants to be different. It's like something good to be unique. You want to be this little star. And here, on the other hand, is like it's better to be part of the group because you're a community and you're together in this.
I agree, but I think like everywhere we have those standards that everyone wants to fit in.
Yeah.
Within the standard, you want to be the different one, which makes no sense.
Within the standard, yeah.
I mean, it makes sense, but makes no sense at the same time, right?
It's like when people make the joke about writing, it's like everyone should be the most, like, I don't know, unique, beautiful, perfect, bright, but all of them wear white and have the diamond ring. How different is that? You and everyone else.
So I think it's the same here, like, but I was really surprised coming to Asia and noticing how people are really similar. Because like in Brazil, we have people from all different, ethnicities and
color, shape, sizes, everything.
Shape, sizes, everything, yes.
Yeah.
All colors and all sizes. And it's beautiful to see all this diversity.
I agree.
But coming over here, everyone's kind of, they're similar because they have the same ethnicity, right? And we don't see a lot of foreigners over here. Although I live in Tokyo, but still. So, I don't know, I think people have more pressure here to fit in, to be in this standard of beauty, to weight a certain weight, to have, this style, to have this look. And if you're at that age and you don't look like that, it's not acceptable as well. So, it's kind of very, I think it's more strict, I would say.
What was your impression of Korea?
Oh my goodness.
Because if you're saying Japan, everyone is look alike.
Yeah.
Come here. I mean, I think the different part is that here, everyone, if there's something trendy, everyone will wear what is trendy. The same clothes, the same shoes, the same. So it's not because people look alike, like physically. They do because they're part of the same ethnicity. They kind of look alike. They have more or less the same facial structure. There's like two main shapes, I would say, that people have. But like, they like to wear the same clothes. They like to put the same style in. And this brings them comfort, I feel.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, I know what's trendy. I know what's fashion. I'm in. You want to be in. You don't want to be out. That's the impression I have. And also, people have different levels of how they talk to people and how they behave. The language also changes. So they need to know where you are in society all the time so they can know how to behave with you. And that's another feature that we didn't have back home.
not to talk about plastic surgery, right? Which in Korea is huge. Like everyone wants to look the same. No, I cannot generalize, but there's a big
but the
market
standard
of
is
plastic
pretty.
surgery.
Yeah, the beauty standard is pretty strict, I would say.
I mean, we can talk about representativity, you know. If you look at the Korean dramas, the Japanese dramas, there's only one type being represented there. You don't see lots of diversity, you know.
Yeah.
So that's how people feel pressure to be that way. I'm not saying that American dramas or Brazilian TV is not, you know,
the most diverse
portraying one type of beauty standard. It is also doing that, but I think we have more representativity than over here.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's why it's so important to have inclusivity in media and TV shows and movies and all those things, because you introduce to new generation what is okay, and you kind of teach them what is acceptable and what is not based on what they're seeing. So you should think better about it. So I wanted to talk a bit about the concept like authenticity, because I feel that this is important to see the difference between Eastern and Western countries as well. So I was reading this article written by Rebecca J. Erickson, and it's about the importance of authenticity for self and society. And she talks about the difference between sincerity and authenticity. So sincerity refers to whether a person represents herself truly and honestly to others. And it doesn't refer to oneself. But authenticity, on the other hand, is one's relationship to oneself. And when you're inauthentic, it's a thing when you become strange to oneself and you don't follow the principles you have committed to, or the principles you have. So I feel that for you to feel comfortable in your own skin, you need to feel this authenticity, because it's not like you're trying to behave in a certain way for other people, but you're actually being honest to yourself. And of course, we have to shift and kind of have this role identities depending on which situation we are. So we have this identity as sister, as daughter, as student, as this, as that. But at the end, we also have a commitment to our own self and to who we truly are inside. And I feel that this concept of self is extremely connected to individuality. And individuality is something praised in Western countries when you are not, and not that much here in Eastern culture. In some places, not everyone, of course, but I feel that this notion of authenticity is kind of the key point where we can feel free to be who we are, not so self-conscious, you know.
I would say one of your tips, or how have you become more comfortable with yourself being in a foreign country, or even, you know, not looking like or not being perceived as the same as your peers or the same as the people around you? Can you share a little bit about your experience?
Well, I basically had to be comfortable with the fact that I'm not Korean and that I'm different, and that's it. Because, of course, it's uncomfortable when people stare at you, but like, that wasn't really a big problem for me because I kind of look alike somehow. But I have friends, for example, from African countries that definitely look very different from Korean people. And like very, very old people, sometimes they ask to touch their hair or touch their skin and this and that and make comments. And it's not being racist or rude because they're very old. They just don't know who they are. Sometimes I feel like that. But those extremes never happened to me. So I'm okay. But you just have to be okay, I guess. If weird things happen and you know you're a foreigner. And I feel some countries they make foreigners feel at home and others won't don't. And that won't change so easily, I think.
So I think when we talk about that, it's also important to talk about the performance of your own identity, because most of the times we don't even notice that what we are doing is a performance, like Butler said.
Yeah.
But, you know, for example, in Japan, especially when I arrived, I was really self-conscious because I didn't want to stand out and, behave like the foreigner. And we kind of perform things. We kind of start noticing the way people behave here and copy some of their, body language and the way they speak. Like, even one of the things that really got into me was like saying itadakimasu before eating. I always say that even when I'm alone. Or like bowing. I like bow all the time now, even for foreigners. Like nod to them. Even if it's not really a bow, I kind of nod to them because I think it's a polite way just to acknowledge they are there. Like, just say hi. I don't know, some things I don't like. For example, laughing, covering my mouth, and the high-pitched voice. I don't really like that because I have some problems with that and infantilization of the feminine. And there's another topic for another day, but talking about our performance of identity, I think it came to a point that I was like, oh well, I gotta accept myself the way I am. Even though I want to blend in, even though I don't want people to perceive me as a strange person, because I kind of look Japanese, so it's not obvious that I am foreigner sometimes, like a foreigner. So having this position that I don't look like a foreigner, don't look like Japanese, I thought I was kind of a weirdo sometimes. But I kind of accepted that, just be who I am. And to get to this point, I think it's important to reflect on our own, how do I say, confidence, being confident in our own skin and, being confident about our life, not only in one specific aspect of our life, but, just gaining confidence in general, because then we behave differently and we face things differently in all aspects of our lives. Do you want to share a little bit about gaining confidence?
Okay, first I just wanted to mention one thing that I noticed about myself, that I end up doing more, like to fit in. I feel that I end up being very polite, like extremely polite to everyone, because I don't want to offend anyone by mistake. So in comparison, even like to regular Korean people, I tend to speak in a more polite way to others. And even like in small situations, to go like to the convenience store, and I always like say very thank you, blah, blah, blah. And it was kind of one of my ways to be accepted somehow.
I think it's just because we feel that we don't want to break any rules here.
Yeah,
kind of.
so
we're walking on eggshells.
Yeah,
because we don't know what is considered right, what is considered wrong when we just arrived. So we tried our best to be polite all the time and to do the right thing all the time. So that's why we're so like self-conscious and super polite and like,
uptight about everything.
Yes,
Yeah.
and trying to notice what the locals are doing, because the locals know how's the way to behave in that situation.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But what you were saying about confidence, I feel it's true. When you gain confidence in one area of your life, it kind of radiates to others. So one of the things I think that you can gain confidence from is like finding one thing you're good at, or finding joy in things you're doing, and finding things you can do for other people. Because most of the time we're so self-centered, like, oh, me, 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 me. But when we find things we can do for others and we see we can help and receive appreciation from those things, that boosts our confidence for sure. So in that confidence, you carry yourself up straight and you can go do the things you need, and just changes your mood and changes the way you perceive yourself. So that's one of the tips I have, I guess. Take the attention from you a little bit and then you won't feel so self-conscious.
That's true. That's super true. Because if you have a broader focus, a different perspective is not only about yourself, and you can relax a little more.
Yeah.
I think
Not
in
everyone.
our case, we felt a lot of pressure because we were super perfectionists.
Yeah.
So we didn't want to make a single mistake, otherwise it would be like the end of the world.
That's why it's hard to learn a new language. That's why it's so hard to start speaking, because mistakes will come and you're gonna feel like you wanna die every time you sleep,
Even in English, I know.
Even in English, yeah.
We're used to speaking in English all the time, but still, not having the perfect pronunciation or speaking or not knowing how to speak some words perfectly, also is something that we kind of have to be okay. We're going to improve with time, but otherwise we're just not doing anything.
Yeah.
So, just some final thoughts now. If you guys had any experience living somewhere else or even in your own home country, it would be great to know how have you accepted yourself, and if you feel pressure to be a certain way, how can you say, well, that's an imposition over my own identity, and having this capacity to put on healthy boundary between the external pressure and your own authenticity, your own self.
Yeah, please let us know. And it doesn't need to be moving to another place. It can also be between your peers if you work in an environment where you feel you have to fit in so people accept you. Or if you're younger, like a teenager, so much heavier the pressure from other people. So let us know how you deal with that. And please always remember that you're loved, you're accepted, you're beautiful being just the way you are. And I know, as cheesy as it sounds, it is true. And be the authentic you. Always. That's why we have this community. We accept everyone and we're trying to bring more diversity into this world. So share your story with us.
And we are focusing on growing together here. No one's perfect. We are all, trying to be a better version of ourselves every single day. So we're all together in this journey of self-development, and we would love to hear your own personal story. So don't forget to, if you're here on YouTube, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave us a comment. If you're listening us on podcast, also you can share and evaluate this podcast if you liked what you heard.
And leave us comments on what you want to listen around here.
Yes, we are very curious to know what you are interested about. And then we can create more content on things that you would like to hear.
That's right.
So stay tuned. Thank you very much. See you on the next episode. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Goodbye.